I wanted to start with the exploration of the action on the 10 priority chemicals uh, that we're aiming for final risk evaluation by the end of this year, and EPA says it's on track to meet that deadline. The key is not just that the timing be met, but that they be done in accordance with the guidance that was in the TSCA Act. And this is very bipartisan. The whole committee worked very hard on developing that TSCA Act in order to help address issues that had been unaddressed for a very long period of time. It was a pretty remarkable piece of work that this committee was involved in. So I'm particularly concerned about whether or not the actual substance of the efforts is reflecting the desire of Congress for thorough analysis. And taking asbestos as an example, the EPA in its draft of its final rule proceeded to exclude legacy uses of asbestos. The Ninth Circuit Court has said that this exclusion is unacceptable. The law is clear. And so that's one problem. A second problem is EPA decided to examine only one of the types of asbestos fibers when there are 6 types that are in commercial use. And so that doesn't make sense in honoring the integrity of the analysis. And the third is the EPA decided to ignore the pathways to exposure, including air exposure, contaminated waste, and drinking water exposure, all of which are very relevant. So meeting a deadline is one thing, but meeting a deadline and actually doing the work in a responsible fashion, a fashion with integrity that addresses the vision that Congress laid out is very important. So I'm concerned that what we're seeing in the asbestos world may also be happening as you look at other chemicals. In other words, using exclusions, waivers, bypasses, ignoring uses, so on and so forth. So why not do the asbestos study looking at the legacy uses? Why not look at all 6 types of fibers? And why not explore the pathways to exposure that are required under the law?
Well, Senator, thank you. So our deadline for the first 10 risk evaluations is June 22nd. I don't know if this will make you feel better or not, but we probably will not meet that deadline as of this point. We are spending more time on the first 10. We want to make sure that we get them right. The peer reviews have taken longer than we had anticipated. The interagency review process has taken longer than we anticipated. I believe we're on track to have at least 2 of the first 10 done by June and the remainder by the end of the summer. But we are spending more time on them because we want to make sure we get them correct, and we wanted to make sure that we had the full advice of the peer review process. So we are taking more time on the peer review process and more time on the first 10 chemicals. On asbestos in particular, on the legacy use, that we are going to do a separate supplemental risk evaluation on the legacy use, since we believe for the other uses we can finalize that this summer, but the legacy use is going to take longer, and that court decision, as you mentioned, just came down last year. So we will not be able to complete the legacy use risk evaluation in time for the rest of the risk evaluation for asbestos this summer. So we will be looking at the broader asbestos issues as part of the legacy use risk assessment.
So let me just be specific. Will you commit to examining all 6 types of asbestos fibers, not just one?
Well, I believe we have that covered under our SNUR, the Significant New Use Rule. If that's not the case, sir, I will get back to you on that and provide follow-up answer to you on the question. But it was my understanding we were addressing that through our SNUR process, which is in tandem with our risk evaluation under TSCA.
And will you commit to examining all significant pathways to exposure, including air, contaminated waste, and drinking water?
Well, when a chemical under the TSCA review process is already being regulated under a different program, we decided early on in setting out the parameters for the TSCA risk evaluations that we would not double regulate that in order to focus the time on the areas of the chemicals that are unregulated at this point. So, and while we're finishing up the first 10, we've already started the next 20. We announced those in December, and we're moving forward on the initial risk assessments for those for the next 20. As you know, under the new TSCA law, we have very strict deadlines. We are trying hard to meet those deadlines, and the way to do that is to allow the other programs that are already regulating aspects of these chemicals to continue to regulate them, whether it's a hazardous air pollutant under the air program or a regulation under the water program.
I don't believe it's the case that anyone thinks that asbestos is being properly regulated in terms of contaminated waste or drinking water or air in other programs. So this is the types of evasions and bypasses that really concern those of us who work so hard to address these toxic chemicals.